Well, for some insight, I'm joined on set by Ellen Kountz, a professor at French Business School INSEEC, and the author of the book Portrait of Veep, The Incredible Story of Kamala Harris. Thank you so much for coming in this morning.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Now, the thing I have struggled to understand with this bill is that so many Republicans seemed really hesitant to pass it. A lot of them even mentioned all of the things about it that they thought were a bad idea. Why did they still vote for it? I mean, what made those Republicans fall in line?
Well, unfortunately, many of them are up for re-election, so they fear for their own seats. I also believe that they fear the wrath of Donald Trump, and they don't want to be called out publicly. Some of them, like Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, were able to obtain things for their own state. So they were able to get some write-ins to the law to get a little extra something for their own state. But I have to say, as an American, one thing I've always really regretted about American culture is this idea that there is kind of a taste for always wanting to punish the poor. And there's a lot of disdain for people who are in need. So I think that this bill reflects that unfortunate attitude. And it also underlines something that's really just leads to a lot of cognitive dissonance, which is apparently the Republicans were supposed to be the ones interested in fiscal conservatism.
Yeah, I mean, it made them, it's interesting that they, this bill kind of flies in the face of one of their core principles.
Yes.
Is that kind of a reflection then of Trump's grip on the Republican Party and the way that he's transformed it?
Well, I think the problem is maybe collectively we've lost sight of what taxes are for and why there are taxes. Today's July 4th. It's supposed to be the celebration of Independence Day. And I know that President Trump is using that to, he'll be signing in the bill this afternoon. But it's really a shame. And the other thing that it reveals also is how his supporters, many of the MAGA, who are in poorer states or southern states or states that have higher social needs, were very much in favor of this bill that's going to slash their own benefits. So a lot of strange cognitive dissonance among the MAGA, and who are convinced to vote against their own interests.
I wanted to ask about public opinion because is it true that MAGA, that Trump supporters kind of also supported this bill? Or
Yes.
Aren't some of the individual parts of it though? I mean, people are against cutting Medicaid, right? They're against cutting.
Well, MAGA is on Medicaid. Let's be clear. MAGA, there are states that are higher contributors. For example, I'm from, like New York and California. We contribute to some of the southern states that don't have as strong economies. So they actually need these things. I think there was something else at stake here. Back in Trump's first mandate, he was determined to roll back or undo what is called Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, because it was President Obama. And he was unable to achieve it in the House and Senate. He was unable to achieve it at the level of the Supreme Court. So I think that this was ultimately a way to kind of put a really strong dent in Obamacare without being able to roll it back, because there will be about 17 million Americans who are going to have reduced health care.
And you said, a lot of these Republican senators and congressmen and women probably voted for this because they are up for re-election in the coming midterms. Couldn't this backfire, though, in a serious way? I mean, if people find their benefits cut, couldn't it go the other way, where voters say, hey, you voted for this bill that took away my welfare. I want you out.
That could happen if they had the courage to continue to do their town halls, which, where they receive the general public. They've kind of stopped that. I think a lot of it is really strong ideology. It's a lot of fantasy. It's a lot of, party discipline. Like, it's very important if you are declared as a Republican. It's just really important to stay on the Republican side, kind of no matter what they decide. And some of it might just be a little bit of everyday racism, because they think it's going to hurt minority communities that they may not be a part of, but ultimately they're also going to get hurt as well.
Do you think that Democrats, meanwhile, kind of put up enough of a fight? I mean, we saw Hakeem Jeffries, making that 8-hour stand. But,
yes.
But aside from that, did they really do enough?
I think that they did what the 20th century would have demanded, but they haven't quite found the recipe for what they're going to need to really stand up to out-and-out authoritarianism. You see, it used to be more of a fair fight. They were bringing a knife to a knife fight. Now it looks like they're bringing a spoon to a knife fight. So it's hard on the Democrats right now to find their footing to really capture public opinion in a significant way.
if the U.S. debt augments even more, which it's supposed to under this bill, I mean,
Yes.
to the tune of several $1 trillion, is that going to impact the standing of the U.S. on the world stage? I mean, do you think, coming from France, how are people looking at the U.S. because of this bill?
Well, I think that because of a lot of the attitudes and the intention of the Trump administration, we've already really lost in the eyes of the world in terms of global standing, in terms of soft power. By the way, another thing to mention here is that this really militarizes the economy. It was mentioned in your report. So a lot more money is going to go to, militarizing the police, for example. So the United States kind of all of a sudden is no longer what it used to be, and it's going to be difficult for a future administration, if ever it gets back in Democrat hands, to undo the damage of what's happening right now.
How quickly do you think we're going to see the changes from this bill start to really impact the country?
Well, there are impacts immediately, because one thing that was mentioned is, SNAP, it's basically food stamps. There are going to be people who are down and out, poor women who may be alone with children, and all of a sudden their check is no longer in the mail. So I think it's cruel and mean-spirited, and there are a lot of people who don't have a voice, who are not going to be captured in the media, and are going to have to suffer in silence. It's a shame.
And this is coming, as we've mentioned, on the 4th of July. How would you describe the mood in the U.S. as it celebrates its birthday this year?
I think that there's a lot of questioning of what's happened in about 160 or 170 days here. For myself, I really fear that the federal government will no longer look anything like federal governments have looked in the past. And I think it's very much intentional. We saw Mike Johnson, who's head of the House, who is unwilling to exercise the congressional power that he has, really onboarding to this authoritarian play that Donald Trump is carrying out. And, in the meantime, Donald Trump is making money on the side. That would have been front page news every single minute of every single day in the past. He's selling watches, phones, sneakers. I said that on another channel, and I think the person maybe didn't believe me. They just thought it could possibly be true, that I must have been making it up. It's totally true. You can find it online.
It's surreal, the amount of swag coming out of the White House.
My
I think
goodness.
you summed it up quite well with the phrase cognitive dissonance.
Yes.
Ellen Kountz, thank you again so much for coming on the program. Again, that's Ellen Kountz, a professor at the French Business School, INSEEC, author of the book Portrait of Veep, The Incredible Story of Kamala Harris.